So, with that in mind as a response, my suggestion how to follow up on this, unless there's some other specific comments you want to address, regarding the presentations, but it would be to open up to audience to questions, so that in relation to their projects, but not as in terms of review per se, but specific questions in relation to what they presented, and hopefully both Jane, yes, and Anna can help also fill in certain spaces that constitute all of that. But Anna, you want to say something?
Perhaps only one thing, Miguel, because I think this can be an element for you. You have like at least 3 elements that we should have in mind to put some questions on the table, like in the present. One can be like the regional situation in politics, like this photo that I don't know if it was Sunny or Schnee that showed Nestor Kirchner, Evo Morales, and all the presidents.
Yes.
And in the beginning of this course of change of the productive matrix is now completely
turn around, inverted, yes, yeah.
And you have Dilma and impeachment, and Correa had the chance to get an earthquake, so things like that. So in this context, you have this regional new context. You have trouble in Venezuela, Dilma impeachment, Evo lost the elections, last rotation, etc. You have the other stuff that is in Ecuador. In a year, you have a year until new elections, and it's a fact that the government is changing to a very neoliberal politics, and it was in a huge economical crisis due to oil price. So this is another important element, and the last is the earthquake, that in a new planifications, like a resilient planification, it's an opportunity to rethink everything. Now we are rethinking not only the cost, the money, the way of the international. We are again in this map of 90s where FMI and all the people that Correa rejected when he renegotiated the debt, that was like really amazing political position that he had in the beginning to say new matrix. Now we have this new map from the earthquake that is changing all the way of thinking the urbanization process. So it's the coast, it's the earthquake, but it's like coming from the sky. We now are thinking a new, again, not in a new productive matrix, but we need to rebuild, to build, to do. We don't need to think about the matrix. We are just thinking about the product. And
yes.
So this is due to the earthquake, and we will have, I think, all you thought for San Roque. Now it's very interesting to think what is happening now in this present situation, that is the opportunity to so many people to change everything. To change is like you win lotto. It's money, it's opportunity. You can do whatever you want. Laws are passes laws every day. New laws change everything.
To the good, to the good, or to the bad? So I'm gonna. You have 5 comments, and then we'll let them, respond to it. So who's first? Hector, you're very sorry to limit you, but because you were part of it, I not even want to do, but just very small one, Hector, please.
So I will review all the positive and big aspects of Sunny and Schneider work and the project, and I will skip directly to a discussion with you. I think that against as I understand your position, there is a big room for building a counter hegemonic discourse on the market and the tourism and the tourist project on the 2 bases. One is the base that they underscore, that it's the people interest, Another is and I think that another big source is the contradictions of the international policy itself. They are building a competition between cities between other American or other world cities on the same project, on the same model of touristic development or cultural development, and this leads to homogenization and to the creation of died spaces from the social and the cultural point of view. And there is a lot of experience on that. So
I'm going to be without everyone. Otherwise, we're going to stay here till 9, I think. And you guys don't want that. Next comment. And now everyone's afraid.
I thought you were amazing today. I just wanted to say that, go back to this comment about geopolitics in Latin America and how I was wondering whether you think about this design product, how it could work elsewhere. Because I feel even though it's a specific case study that you've worked on throughout this whole year, I see so much of that in the rest of Latin America. And those contested spaces are going to change in a drastic way with this new wave of winged presidencies that are coming over to Latin America. So I just want to comment on how the basics of all your work really does apply to a region, in a regional scale. I think that's an interesting thing to think about while developing the design proposal.
Alejandro, you wanted to say something?
I don't know how it's because we are going to be in the other panel.
Yes.
So I think I prefer to wait, but I must add that I really like the methodology, and because to have this complexity and debrief the complexity in relation with the scale, the political attitude as well, and to understand the different narratives and contradictions that are happening. So you gave us a very broad perspective, not only for Ecuador, is to understand some specific problems that challenge completely different conditions and extreme distances or gap between. So this, I think as well that this opportunity to work with the with the San Roque market is like the expression of the fight of Ecuador in some way, because the indigenous, the language, the economy, how the territory works, and as well how the global interests are now in the downtown. So it's not an easy question to answer, but the way that you develop the process and to the research, I enjoy and I like it. I miss something, but I think but let me, I think, because I miss the voices of the indigenous in your talk and your expression, because the problem of the market is a problem of language. The 60%, if I understand well, the people of the market, or 70%, is indigenous. So the relation between the economy and the production and the agriculture in relation with those specific community is like an ecosystem that represents not only the site of the market is a region. So the voice of the food and the production of the agriculture I miss as well, because I agree with you with cultural heritage that we are talking about market.
Without trying to defend them,
This is,
it's
well,
coming.
look, but this is actively,
Yes.
I mean, most of the work that's done on the market actively engages, the materials that not
Yes.
only Fundación Museos produces, but others are actually about exactly those
I
aspects.
suppose yes,
Yeah.
but in the presentation,
Yeah.
the food,
Well, just
the
wait for-
language. So let me in the
Yeah.
next panel I will
There's
sorry,
3 more.
those specific
There's 3
questions.
more.
Okay.
David,
Each of us couldn't do every aspect of the market, but yes,
you raised your hand, David. I saw it like that.
I didn't.
Miguel, you're picking on
push
people.
you to
Well, no, I mean, this is classic. I mean, one of the things I think we've all got to get used to is how quickly things change.
You're only constant.
And what you assume at one moment in an investigation suddenly disappears at the next. And I think easy dealing with a cathedral. It's dead space and it stays there and it doesn't change.
Well, for some people it's worth it.
Well, but it's essentially an object and you just kind of sits there. But what's so fascinating about the market is precisely its lived qualities and the transformations and the metabolism, and so on. And I think that's what makes it such an exciting space, but it makes it very difficult to actually have a fixed position, because it's not our task as researchers to try and anchor this process. It's to go with the flow, and it's flowing in these kind of new ways. And I think then the question is, what do people outside the market want? What do people inside the market want? How is that working? And I think the question you're raising about what's the relationship, what's going on in the market with the plurinational constitutional mission, which seems to me to have absolutely nothing to do with reality at all, as far as I can tell. But here's a space where it could be. So I think it's a space, at the same time as it's a space which is in very rapid flux, it's a space of, I think, of opportunity. So I guess one of the questions, the difficulty for outside researchers is to we've been away for 3 months and everything's changed. And I think we have to recognize that. And then, what would you do now? You don't even want to think about it, I guess. But you did a fantastic job while you were there. So the next step.
Lydia, I saw you also raising a hand.
I didn't raise my hand.
No, are you sure? I saw some movement.
I
know.
haven't really thought about framing this yet, but Jana's point I really take to heart. And as I was listening to this, I was thinking about the strategies of the wonder versus the anti-meta and wondering about whether there was room in that formation of a dichotomy, which is actually a disempowering dichotomy, and perhaps also a way of linking back into indigenous patterns of what would it mean to, rather than position oneself against the wonder, to reclaim the notion of wonder and expand it so that it's more more polyphonic, more representative of different ways in which the space of the imaginary and something that goes beyond the moment of a situated political struggle could actually be encapsulated. So that was what I was thinking about.
So we're going to take one more comment. Thank you, Lydia. Alessandro, and then last comments, and then we have to move on. Yeah. I'm a terrible moderator.
Hey, Bruno, thank you, first of all, and congratulations. All throughout your presentations, one particular piece by a former mentor of mine, the late Fernando Coronel, Venezuelan anthropologist, was ringing in my head. There's a critical essay called Smelling Like a Market. It was a response to the book Seeing Like a State. And one of his early observations in that piece was that not only do markets smell, the fish and the bread and the rest of it, but they are able to smell. They're able to sense conditions of the society in which they're embedded. I was wondering if these artistic initiatives that you've been engaged with were trying to give legibility to those everyday ways of sensing the world that the market is able to give.
Thank you, Alessandro. Please be brief, all of you.
I just want to pick up on your perspective of the broad perspective. And I think this is what we bring in as practitioners, especially someone coming in from an external, outside perspective, of to be able to use the market as a node to trace different geographical scales, different political situations, so it takes you out of the frame of just understanding what's going on within the neighborhood, but being able to situate it what's going on with the city, what's going on with the nation, what's going on with the regional perspective. And as someone who was very new to the Latin American context, just using that one node of the market allowed you to explode and implode and constantly going back and forth between scales, and that's so important because you can't understand the contested struggle with the market without being situated within the political moments of the country and within the whole Latin American context. So I think that's a big important part of an urban practitioner, and being able to investigate those multiple different levels, and it just brings you a much richer interdisciplinary perspective into understanding the situation in order to think about what the present situation is and how we can work to our future, the strategies that will inform a future political agenda. So that was really important.
But I think, I just want to pick up on what you said though, because I think what was key here is that we weren't really those research, like we were allied, we were working with people who were already looking at these different scales and things. So I think, I mean, from what has been framed, obviously you can't, again, your position is where you stand in the world. You can only act from there with that awareness. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And then, yeah, in response, I definitely think that these practices were engaging with that sensory quality, which was so important because of the kind of like sanitization of the historic center, right? And the kind of like removal of vendors from certain spaces and vendors protesting and, you know, asking for the right to work and to be. And I mean, I guess I'm personally not a practitioner in this context, so I can't necessarily speak to like the those specific aspects. But as you'll see in one of the presentations this afternoon, Gamar and Tate are also looking at a tool that is moves you through the market through a film in a filmic sense in order to give you that like grounded sensory access to what a market is, because it is a site of exchange, and it's almost like the hub for so many things, and ways to kind of like visibilize that without disadvantaging people at the same time. So I hope that you'll be able to stay for that part as well.
Thank you, Sunit. Some last words, Hannah and Johnny. Please keep it short. If you need to, if you're not.
Only that what's nice to think is that this market is for the city in this metabolism of feeding the city. We thought it was like a third part of the city. Now we think it's more. Last investigation, it's almost 40 and something. And the market is doing this quietly, you know, no publicity, no huge as like supermarkets or normal consumption way of being in the cities. It's a way of being there, in the presence, like a permanent being there and reproducing itself. And this way of this metabolism, we thought, we were thinking about this with Luis, that this is something like in the way the organizations and the researchers, as Reda Saberes and other people, are working with the organization of the market. You know, like, just like being there and like in the presence, like it's quiet and doing something very dynamic to make the same process, the same dynamics understand itself and reflect on this. So we thought a lot about this visibility, what is different from like huge normal market or neoliberal, you know, strategies, and what is the place of, as a researcher, you can find yourself in this kind of process, you know, even because Sinead said about the authors and what's our role in these kind of spaces, like academic spaces, but it has always to be about being there, like being there in another way. So like writing and thinking about new ways of writing, or let's say like new kind of texts about this process. So I think this is nice to permit ourselves to be there and to find a place, as a role in this metabolic way of supporting the organization, of being part of this organization, even if it's a specific and strange role that we have. All of us.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of like, because for me it was really also very interesting to hear your stories for the little bit of the San Rocco market that I tasted. Like, you know, what is of course very interesting is that when you describe the larger struggles and you describe, let's say, also the way that an engagement with the community could sort of strengthen some of the things that are going on. I think what is predominantly there as a struggle is, of course, that the market San Rocco is an ecosystem in itself. It is a city in a city, and it is a different way of relating issues such as food, culture, economy, with a group of people, and also with an understanding of an indigenous group of people in a different way than the city's prevailing narrative, which is a narrative of colonialism. So there's a fundamental underlying struggle there about different ideas about how we want to live together, but also what a city needs to thrive and how it can thrive. And I think that is something that in this process of engagement, I think we have to find ways to strengthen. That this is not just a way of surviving at your shule, but this is a truly different way of understanding how city ecosystems work. And I think that sort of like narrative, we are still, I think, as practitioners, all trying to find out how we can actually help strengthening that narrative without like compromising it or making it again a one-dimensional narrative about resisting or something like that. So I think it's about really a different understanding about what an ecosystem is and what an ecosystem we need actually for the future. For me, that's very important, and I find it as a practitioner even difficult to constantly position myself there and to not wander off to one way or to the other, you know, which is a human thing to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.